This audio program has been produced as a supplement to Longman preparation course for the TOEFL test, Next Generation iBT, by Deborah Phillips. Copyright 2005 by Pearson Education. All rights reserved. The use of this audio program for the purpose of copying, transforming, or adapting in any manner, in whole or in part, is strictly prohibited without prior consent of Pearson Education. CD 4. Writing Diagnostic Pretest. This section measures your ability to use writing to communicate in an academic environment. For this writing task, you will read a passage and listen to a lecture, and then answer a question based on what you have read and heard. Questions 1 and 2. Question 1. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Now, I'd like to talk about the cause of childhood amnesia. Though its cause is not known for certain, and various explanations have been hypothesized, one explanation is more generally accepted than others. The generally accepted explanation for childhood amnesia has to do with a huge difference in the way that young children and adults encode their experiences. Young children simply encode their experiences randomly as they happen, while adults retain their memories in an organized way. Because a young child encodes events randomly, without forming associations between events or categorizing events in an organized way, the memories of the encoded events of young children don't last. There are most likely numerous causes of the shift from early childhood random encoding to adult encoding in organized patterns. A major factor in this shift is the maturing of the hippocampus. Do you know what the hippocampus is? HIPPOCAMPUS. It's a part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that helps organize and consolidate memories. And this part of the brain is not mature for at least the first 2 to 3 years of life. As a result, events that take place in the first 2 or 3 years can't be organized and consolidated, and therefore most likely won't be remembered later in life.
How does the information in the listening passage add to the ideas presented in the reading passage? On the actual test, you will be given 20 minutes to write your response. Please pause the audio and spend 20 minutes writing your response. Writing Exercise 2. Number 1. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Something that many people find quite surprising about the Sahara is that it actually used to be quite green. It once used to be a lush green jungle-like area. When an ice age, the Pleistocene Ice Age, ended about 10,000 years ago, the area that today is the massive Sahara Desert actually had a rather wet climate. The area was a lush green land of forests and grasslands, with rivers and lakes throughout. There were large animals such as giraffes and elephants, and there were even hippopotamuses, which need water year-round to live in the area. The area was also populated by prehistoric peoples who lived at first by hunting and fishing, and later by farming and raising animals. Around 6,000 years ago, the climate there began to dry out, and the region began turning into a desert. Within 2,000 years, by 4,000 years ago, a dramatic shift had taken place, and the Sahara had become the huge desert that it is today.
Number 2. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
We've seen that polysemic words are words that have numerous meanings. Well, there is a really special group of polysemic words, and this special group consists of words that have not just different meanings, but opposite meanings. Think about this, that there can be one word in English that has not just different meanings, but meanings that are, in some sense, opposite. Think about the words bolt and fast. If you bolt something, perhaps you bolt your door, then this means that it's locked fast or fastened and cannot move or open. However, if someone decides to bolt, then he or she is running away and running away very fast. So, the word bolt can mean locked and not moving, or conversely, can mean moving very quickly. The same can be said of the word fast. This word can also mean locked and not moving, or moving very quickly. Another interesting word of this type is the word sanction. Just think about what this word means. If you sanction something, it means that you permit it. However, if you put a sanction on something, then it means the opposite. In this case, it means that you don't permit it. Okay, keep in mind that these words that you just learned about, bolt and fast and sanction, are polysemic words, because each can have different meanings. But they are special kinds of polysemic words because their meanings aren't simply different. Their meanings are opposite in some sense.
Number 3. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Now I'd like to talk about what some critics have to say about Margaret Mead's research. There is one very general criticism that comes out in critical reviews of Mead's work. This general criticism of Mead's work is that what she saw in the 3 societies that she studied was just too pat, too neat, that it all fit too neatly into specific categories. She found these 3 societies that exhibited remarkably different gender roles. 3 societies that neatly fit into categories that she was looking to fill. It's not very normal for any society to have behavior that's so extreme, where one can say that all the people in the society act in the same extreme way. It's not very common in anthropological research, in the study of human societies, that people fit very neatly into a limited number of categories, because humans are far more complex than that. Stated another way, this general criticism of Mead is that perhaps she was looking for societies that exhibit certain extreme behaviors as a whole. And when she found these 3 particular societies, she paid more attention to the behaviors that fit in with the theory she was trying to prove, and perhaps did not pay enough attention to the behaviors that didn't fit into her theory.
Writing Review Exercise. Skills 1 through 7. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
What is really important about this discovery is that the Iceman was found with all of his clothing and tools intact. He is the first prehistoric man ever to have been found this way. Other prehistoric bodies have been found, but these bodies had generally been prepared for death. The Iceman was most likely going about his day in a normal way, wearing his regular clothes and carrying the tools he used in his daily life. The Iceman, thus, can give us a very good idea about what the Iceman's daily life was like. It was originally believed that the Iceman was out traveling in the mountains when he became unable to continue, perhaps overcome by the elements around him or by exhaustion. However, there is more recent evidence of a fatal knife wound in the Iceman's back and several other wounds on his body that leads researchers to believe that the Iceman was in close combat when he died. Whatever the cause of death, the body was preserved in ice for thousands of years until the ice around it thawed and it became visible to the hikers who found it.
How does the information in the listening passage add to the ideas presented in the reading passage? Writing post-test. This section measures your ability to use writing to communicate in an academic environment. For this writing task, you will read a passage and listen to a lecture, and then answer a question based on what you have read and heard. Question 1. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Do you understand the concept of unintended consequences? That sometimes, when a decision is made, there are consequences of that decision that are unexpected? This, of course, can take place in any field where decisions are made. But we're going to look at this concept in terms of government decision-making. Let's take, for example, a situation where a local government needed to increase revenue, so it decided to raise taxes. Makes sense, doesn't it, that the government should have raised taxes if it wanted to increase revenues? Well, let's look at what happened in this situation. This government wanted to raise revenue, so it increased taxes. And for a short while, tax revenue was higher. But then, guess what happened? The citizens of the area who were paying higher taxes had less money to spend because they were paying higher taxes, you see. Well, because the citizens had less money to spend, they bought fewer goods. And what happened to companies when they were selling fewer goods? Well, they paid less in taxes for one thing, and they had to lay off employees for another. And these employees who lost their jobs paid no taxes because they weren't working, you see. So look at the overall situation in this area after a few years. The local government had raised taxes to increase revenue. However, when the government raised taxes, revenue actually went down rather than up. That's an unexpected consequence.
How does the information in the listening passage add to the ideas presented in the reading passage? On the actual test, you will be given 20 minutes to write your response. Please pause the audio and spend 20 minutes writing your response. Mini Test 1. Listening. This section measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. You will listen to one conversation and one lecture. You will hear each conversation and lecture one time. After each conversation or lecture, you will answer some questions about it. The questions typically ask about the main idea and supporting details. Some questions ask about a speaker's purpose or attitude. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Your notes will not be scored. In some questions, you will see this icon. This means that you will hear, but not see, part of the question. You will now begin this part of the listening section. Questions 1 through 5. Listen to a conversation between a student and a lab assistant.
Hi, I have a few questions about how we need to handle our work in the science laboratory.
I gave very specific instructions at the first lab meeting.
And we have to complete the lab work exactly that way?
That's what I'd like, yes.
Do we need to work in the lab in a group?
Yes.
And work with the exact group members we were assigned?
Is there a problem with your group?
Well, during the first lab session, we had a difficult time agreeing on how to proceed with the experiment.
Of course you did. That's to be expected. There are 4 people in your group, so you most likely had 4 different ideas on how to proceed. Part of the task is for the 4 of you to work together as a group, to discuss as a group how the experiment should proceed and arrive at a consensus before you begin.
During the first experiment, we spent almost the entire 3 hours in the lab discussing what to do next.
Perhaps your group should meet before the next lab session to figure out how you're going to proceed with the experiment when you get to the lab.
Okay, I'll see if I can get my group to try that, but it'll probably take my group several hours even to decide when to meet, much less actually figure out what we're going to do during the lab session.
Okay, please try that and see if you and your group can work it out. Now, was that the only question you had, or do you have another?
I actually do have another question. It's about the lab report. Is the lab report supposed to be a group assignment or an individual assignment?
The lab report is to be an individual assignment. Each person involved in the experiment should write up a separate lab report about the experiment.
So the experiment has to be conducted by the group, and a report about the experiment has to be written up individually by each participant?
That's exactly right.
And does the report need to follow the format you described to us?
It absolutely does. I'm extremely strict about the format. I want the format of the report to be exactly as I described.
Okay, I get the point.
Number 1. Why does the student go to see the lab assistant? Number 2. Listen again to part of the passage. Then answer the question.
Do we need to work in the lab in a group?
Yes.
And work with the exact group members we were assigned?
Is there a problem with your group?
Why does the lab assistant answer the student's question with this question?
Is there a problem with your group?
Number 3. What does the lab assistant suggest that the group should try? Number 4. Listen again to part of the passage. Then answer the question.
Okay, I'll see if I can get my group to try that, but it'll probably take my group several hours even to decide when to meet, much less actually figure out what we're going to do during the lab session.
How does the student seem to feel about his group? Number 5. What does the lab assistant say about the lab report? Questions 6 through 11. Listen to a lecture in an American literature class.
Continuing our discussion of different genres of American literature, today we'll be discussing historical fiction. Historical fiction is a kind of fiction that tries to portray a certain time period or historical event while adding to or altering the facts to create a storyline. Often the historical event is told through the eyes of a fictional character, and sometimes the historical facts are altered to improve the storyline. One of the finest examples of historical American fiction is the Little House series of books, written by Laura Ingalls Wilder. How many of you are familiar with this series of books? I'm sure you're all familiar with the television series that was based on it. The Little House books began as a record of the stories Pa told Laura when she was little. When her first book, Little House in the Big Woods, was a success, Laura Wilder was asked to write a series of stories, not the history, of her childhood. The point I want you to understand clearly is that every incident in Laura Wilder's books is true, but Laura purposefully did not tell the whole truth. She wanted to write books that she felt were appropriate for children. What she did was to leave out events and to alter names that were unpleasant. An example of an event that Laura omitted because it was unpleasant was the life of the fourth Ingalls child. The fourth child was a boy named Charles Frederick Ingalls, who died before his first birthday. The life of this child was omitted from her books. Another example shows how Laura changed the names of people portrayed in a bad light. Nellie Olson was a character in the book, rather than a real person. This character was based on a composite of two girls in Plum Creek, Nellie Owens and Ginny Masters, two girls who caused Mary and Laura a lot of trouble. Laura didn't want to use the real names of these bothersome girls in her books. From these examples, we can see that one of the ways that Laura made her stories more appropriate for children was to make her stories a little more pleasant than her life had actually been. Another technique she used to make her stories more appropriate for children was to simplify the storylines. Now we'll see another example of how Laura simplified storylines by omitting events that actually happened because she wanted to make the story easier to follow. Laura altered the description of the moves that her family actually made for the sake of simplicity. In real life, the Ingalls family moved from the Big Woods to Missouri, then to the Indian Territory, back to the Big Woods, and finally to Minnesota. In the Little House books, Laura recorded the Ingalls moving from the Big Woods to Indian Territory and then to Minnesota. There are many other such details and events that Laura felt were not appropriate for children. These changes are what move her work from the genre of autobiography to the genre of historical fiction. In summary, although the Little House books record true historical events as they happened, the series is considered historical fiction rather than autobiography, because Laura Wilder omitted events and altered names to improve the storyline and make her books appropriate for her readers.
Number 6. Listen again to part of the passage. Then answer the question.
Continuing our discussion of different genres of American literature, today we'll be discussing historical fiction.
Why does the professor begin the lecture in this way? Number 7. How is the information in the lecture presented? Number 8. How is the Little House series classified? Number 9. What two statements are true about Laura Wilder's Little House series? Number 10. What event did Laura omit from her books? Number 11. What conclusion can be drawn from the lecture? Mini Test 1. Speaking. In this section of the test, you will be able to demonstrate your ability to speak about a variety of topics. In question 2, you will first read a short text. You will then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then be asked a question about what you have read and heard. You will need to combine appropriate information from the text and the talk to provide a complete answer to the question. You need to demonstrate your ability to speak clearly and coherently, and to accurately convey information about what you read and heard. In question 3, you will first listen to part of a conversation or a lecture. You will then be asked a question about what you heard. You need to demonstrate your ability to speak clearly and coherently, and on your ability to accurately convey information about what you heard. You may take notes while you read and while you listen to the conversations and lectures. You may use your notes to help you prepare your response. Listen carefully to the directions for each question. The directions will not be written on the screen. Question 2. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Isn't that a great assignment for history class?
Which assignment?
The assignment where we have to watch a lot of films.
I don't know. It seems like it's going to take a lot of time.
But we'll be spending time watching films.
Watching films and writing reports. We have to write a report for each film we watch, you know.
I know we do, but we just have to write a report summarizing the key points of each film. We don't have to research anything, and we don't have to analyze anything. We can just summarize the main points of each film, and that really shouldn't take too much time at all.
You've got a point there. And I guess watching films is a better assignment than most assignments the professor could give. I guess I'll have to get to work on watching those 12 films.
Only 12? I'm going to try and watch all 20.
But we only have to watch 12 of them, right?
Yes, but we can watch more than 12 for extra credit. And I think watching films is a great way to earn some extra credit.
How do the students seem to feel about the history class assignment? Question 3. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Today I'll be talking about glaciers and, in particular, how glaciers are formed. First of all, do you know what a glacier is? Well, a glacier is a mass of ice, but there's more to it than that. A glacier is a mass of ice that's moving. Glaciers form where snow accumulates, where more snow falls than melts, so it piles up. If all the snow melts every year in a particular place, a glacier can't form there. And there needs to be considerable accumulation. If there's only a small amount of accumulation, then a glacier can't form because there needs to be considerable weight for a glacier to form. So there must be enough accumulation of sufficient weight for a glacier to form. When enough snow has accumulated, there's pressure on the snow underneath. Enough pressure to transform the loose snowflakes into ice crystals. The weight of the accumulated snow causes the snowflakes to compress into ice crystals. And with more and more pressure, the smaller ice crystals pack together to create even larger crystals. The final step in the formation of a glacier is for the packed ice to begin to move. When the amount of crystallized ice becomes large enough, the packed ice begins to move and a glacier is born.
How are glaciers formed? Mini-Test 1. Writing. This section measures your ability to use writing to communicate in an academic environment. There will be one writing task. For this writing task, you will read a passage and listen to a lecture, and then answer a question based on what you have read and heard. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
You may read all of this information about garlic, about how it was used in the past, and think that this was all just a lot of superstition, like breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck, or throwing salt over your shoulder protects you from bad luck. But this is different. It's not all just superstition, though some of it is. There's actually a lot of scientific evidence that garlic does have certain medicinal benefits. First of all, garlic does kill bacteria. In 1858, Louis Pasteur conducted some research that showed that garlic does actually kill bacteria. When garlic was used during World War I to prevent infection, there was good reason. There is actually research to back up garlic's ability to kill bacteria. It's raw or uncooked garlic that has this property. Raw garlic has been shown to kill 23 different kinds of bacteria. Then, when garlic is heated, it's been shown to have different medicinal properties. When it's heated, garlic forms a compound that thins the blood. The blood-thinning property can help prevent arteries from clogging and reduce blood pressure, which may have some impact on preventing heart attacks and strokes.
How does the information in the listening passage support the information presented in the reading passage? On the actual test, you will be given 20 minutes to write your response. Please pause the audio and spend 20 minutes writing your response. Mini-test 2. Listening. This section measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. You will listen to one conversation and one lecture. You will hear each conversation and lecture one time. After each conversation or lecture, you will answer some questions about it. The questions typically ask about the main idea and supporting details. Some questions ask about a speaker's purpose or attitude. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Your notes will not be scored. In some questions, you will see this icon. This means that you will hear, but not see, part of the question. You will now begin this part of the listening section. Questions 1 through 5. Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Hi, Dr. Lane. Do you have a moment? Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Come on in. Now, what's your question?
Well, it's about the assignment.
The assignment? Which assignment?
The assignment you gave yesterday in class?
The assignment I gave in class yesterday?
Yeah.
But I didn't give an assignment in class yesterday, did I? I don't remember giving an assignment yesterday in class.
You know, the assignment about the reports we're supposed to read?
Oh, I think you mean the assignment about the journals you're supposed to read and the report you're supposed to write.
Yeah, that assignment.
I'm sorry. I was a bit unsure what you were asking about because I discussed that assignment with the class last week and not yesterday.
Oh, I thought it was yesterday, but maybe it was last week. Anyway, that's the assignment I need to know about.
What do you need to know about the assignment?
Well, I think the assignment was about reading some reports.
No. Did you understand what I just said? And did you understand anything about the assignment? You're supposed to read journals.
Oh, that's right. That's what you said before. We're supposed to read journals. But what journals are we supposed to read?
I did go over that in class last week. But anyway, I put some journal articles on reserve in the library. There are 3 journals on reserve.
So I'm supposed to go to the library and read those 2 journal articles.
3 journal articles.
Okay, I'm supposed to read 3 journal articles.
Yes, that's right.
And that's all I need to do? Just read those 3 journal articles on reserve?
No, not quite. That's only the first part of the assignment. After you read the 3 journal articles, you're supposed to write a report.
Oh, I see. That's where the report comes in. We're not supposed to read a report. We're supposed to write a report.
That's right.
And I should write about the 3 journal articles in my report?
Yes. You should discuss the main points of each article in your report and then compare the ideas in the 3 articles.
Okay, I get it now.
Are you sure? Maybe I should go over it again.
Number 1. What is the student confused about? Number 2. Listen again to part of the passage. Then answer the question.
Well, I think the assignment was about reading some reports.
No. Did you understand what I just said? And did you understand anything about the assignment?
How does the professor seem to feel? Number 3. Is each of these part of the assignment? Number 4. Listen again to the end of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Okay, I get it now.
Are you sure? Maybe I should go over it again.
Why does the professor end the conversation this way? Number 5. What conclusion can be drawn about the student? Questions 6 through 11. Listen to a discussion in an archaeology class.
I hope all of you read the assigned material. Do any of you have any questions about it?
I do. I'm really having difficulty understanding some of the material.
Which material?
The material in the 10th chapter in the text on cross-dating. Can you explain it a bit more?
Sure, no problem. What do you need me to explain?
First of all, exactly what is cross-dating?
That's a pretty broad question. Okay. Cross-dating is a method of dating one archaeological area by extending relative dates from another area.
And just what exactly does that mean? I still don't understand.
It means that archaeologists may be certain of the dates when one particular culture existed, from scientific data in that area, but they may not have scientific information to be sure of the dates of another culture in the area. They can draw a conclusion about the dates that the second culture existed by comparing it with the first culture.
You mean that archaeologists compare two cultures in one area and determine the dates of one culture from the other?
Exactly. Let me give you an example. Archaeologists found two areas of ancient cultural development. One in what is today northern Arizona, and the other in what is today southern Arizona. They were able to date the cultural development in the northern area scientifically, but they were unable to date the cultural development in the southern area in the same way.
So let me guess. Because they were able to date the northern area but not the southern area using scientific methods, they used cross-dating to infer the dates of the southern culture.
Exactly.
And what type of scientific method did the archaeologists use to date the culture in the northern area?
They used tree ring remnants to determine the dates of the northern culture.
Well, why couldn't they use the same method to determine the dates of the southern culture?
They couldn't date the cultural development in the southern area in the same way because there were no trees in that area. So, they had to use the technique of cross-dating to determine the dates of the southern area.
But, can you tell me, how exactly did the archaeologists do that?
They used pottery. The culture in the northern area which had been scientifically dated at 700 to 900 AD using tree ring dating, had a distinctive type of pottery. Pieces of this distinctive northern pottery were found in the southern area.
How did the pottery from the northern culture get to the southern culture?
Apparently, the pottery from the northern culture came to the southern culture through trade.
And if the two cultures were involved in trade, then they must have existed at the same time.
Exactly. Because these pieces of northern pottery were found in the southern culture, archaeologists were able to infer that the culture of the southern area was active in the same era as the northern culture.
So the southern culture must have existed sometime around the period of 700 to 900 AD, just as the northern culture did.
You've got it. Now do you understand how cross-dating works?
Thanks. I actually think I do.
Okay, then. Now, are there any other questions?
Number 6. What is the main topic of this discussion? Number 7. How is the information in the discussion presented? Number 8. What do archaeologists compare when using cross-dating? Number 9. What is not true about tree ring dating according to the discussion? Number 10. Is each of these true about the areas discussed in the lecture? Number 11. How does the student seem to feel about the material? Mini-test 2. Speaking. In this section of the test, you will be able to demonstrate your ability to speak about a variety of topics. In question 2, you will first read a short text. You will then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then be asked a question about what you have read and heard. You will need to combine appropriate information from the text and the talk to provide a complete answer to the question. You need to demonstrate your ability to speak clearly and coherently, and to accurately convey information about what you read and heard. In question 3, you will first listen to part of a conversation or lecture. You will then be asked a question about what you heard. You need to demonstrate your ability to speak clearly and coherently, and on your ability to accurately convey information about what you heard. You may take notes while you read and while you listen to the conversations and lectures. You may use your notes to help you prepare your response. Listen carefully to the directions for each question. The directions will not be written on the screen. Question 2. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
In a certain company, work was completed in work groups. Each employee was assigned to a work group, and each employee was evaluated not on individual work, but on the quality of the work of his or her group. 2 of the work groups in the company had very different leaders. In the first group, the leaders started off each group meeting with an activity designed to help the group members get to know each other. The leader then had the group members each make a positive comment about how the work on the group project was going. The leader ended each meeting by asking group members to send him an email describing how they felt that the meeting had gone. Work in the second group was very different. The group leader in the second group prepared a detailed list of what each group member was to get done in the following week. In each weekly meeting, the group leader grilled each group member about what he or she had and had not managed to accomplish since the last meeting, and made it clear that the work on the list needed to be completed on time.
How does the information in the listening passage add to the information in the reading passage? Question 3. Listen to the passage. On a piece of paper, take notes on the main points of the listening passage.
Are you going to the meeting tonight, Jeff?
Which meeting?
The student council meeting.
Oh, the open meeting? The one where any students can attend?
Yeah, that meeting.
I don't think I'm going.
Why not? Didn't you want to take part in the discussion about the exam schedule?
I'm happy with the exam schedule as it is. I like having a 6-day final exam schedule.
But that's why you need to go to the meeting.
What do you mean?
Well, the student council's holding an open meeting to discuss changing the final exam schedule, and a lot of students want to change the schedule. I think a lot of students who want to change the exam schedule will be at the open meeting this evening.
You mean if I want the final exam schedule to stay just like it is, then I need to go to the meeting to support the idea of keeping the schedule just like it is?
That's right. That's why I'm going.
You mean you don't want the schedule to change?
No way. You know how they're considering changing the schedule?
They want to shorten it a little bit, don't they?
They want to shorten it a lot. They want to cut it in half.
You mean they want to reduce the final exam schedule from 6 days to 3 days?
That's right.
But I have 5 final exams. If my 5 exams are spread out over 6 days, then I'll be okay. But if I have 5 exams in 3 days, I'm going to have a really hard time.
Me too. I have 5 final exams too.
But why would anyone want to reduce the exam schedule from 6 to 3 days?
So that summer vacation will start 3 days earlier.
But it would make the final exam schedule really horrible.
That's why we need to go to that meeting tonight, to try and keep the exam schedule just like it is.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'll be there.
So will I.
How do the students seem to feel about what will be discussed at the student council meeting? Mini Test 3. Listening. This section measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. You will listen to one conversation and one lecture. You will hear each conversation and lecture one time. After each conversation or lecture, you will answer some questions about it. The questions typically ask about the main idea and supporting details. Some questions ask about a speaker's purpose or attitude. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Your notes will not be scored. In some questions, you will see this icon. This means that you will hear, but not see, part of the question. You will now begin this part of the listening section. Questions 1 through 5. Listen to a conversation between a student and an advisor.
Yes, Sean, what can I do for you? Do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Then come on in and take a seat. Okay. What's your question?
I'm working on planning my schedule for next quarter, and I'm trying to decide which biology class to take. There seem to be two that are quite similar.
Which two courses are you considering?
Well, one is Introduction to Biological Science, and the other is Biology 101. I thought that a 101 numbered course was a beginning course, so Biology 101 should be an introductory level course. But then Introduction to Biological Science also seems to be an introductory level course.
Well, there's a difference between the courses. Introduction to Biological Science is an overview of biology in a more general way, and Biology 101 is a more detailed and scientific view of the material.
I'm sorry, but I don't quite understand the difference.
Well, a clear example of the difference is the fact that there's work in the lab as part of Biology 101, but there's no lab work in Introduction to Biological Science. Introduction to Biological Science is a lecture class, while Biology 101 includes both lecture and lab.
You mean that in Introduction to Biological Science, the students read about science, and in Biology 101, the students actually take part in science experiments in the lab?
You could put it that way.
It seems like Biology 101 is a lot more work than Introduction to Biological Science, with the lab work and all.
It certainly is. That's why Biology 101 is a 4-unit course, and Introduction to Biological Science is only a 3-unit course. Listen, there's another really important difference between these two courses, and it has to do with what your major is. What is your major, by the way?
I'm not actually sure yet. Is that a problem?
You're a freshman, aren't you? You're in your first year?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you actually don't need to declare your major until the end of your second year. But You would be better off making certain decisions a bit earlier than that, and right now, you're making one of them. One really important difference between Biology 101 and Introduction to Biological Science has to do with majors. Biology 101 is required for students who are majoring in science, while Introduction to Biological Science satisfies a general education requirement in science for students who are majoring in subjects outside of science. I know that you haven't decided on your major, but have you at least decided whether you'll be majoring in some area within the sciences or an area outside of science?
No, I haven't even gotten that far in deciding on a major. I may want to major in science or maybe not.
Okay, well, what I can suggest to you is that you really should start narrowing down your choices for a major area of studies. Perhaps, if you're considering a major in science, you should take Biology 101 as a way of helping you to decide whether or not you enjoy studying science.
If I take Biology 101 and then decide not to major in science, will I still need to take Introduction to Biological Science after Biology 101 to satisfy the general education requirement in science?
No, absolutely not. If you take Biology 101, that'll also satisfy the general education requirement for non-science majors.
Okay, that makes sense. It'll be a good way to help me either to decide that I want to major in science or to find out that I really don't like science.
Number 1. What problem does the student have? Number 2. What differentiates Biology 101 from the other course? Number 3. Listen again to part of the passage, then answer the question.
Introduction to Biological Science is a lecture class, while Biology 101 includes both lecture and lab.
You mean that in Introduction to Biological Science, the students read about science, and in Biology 101, the students actually take part in science experiments in the lab?
You could put it that way.
What does the advisor mean when she says this?
You could put it that way.
Number 4. What decision does the advisor seem to think that the student should make fairly soon? Number 5. What can be concluded from the conversation? Questions 6 through 11. Listen to a lecture in a gemology class.
Today I'll be talking about different styles of gem cutting, particularly about how these different styles developed historically. The various styles of gems that I'll be talking about are the cabochon, the table cut, the rose cut, and the brilliant cut. The first style of gem cutting, which you can see in this drawing, is the cabochon. The cabochon is a rounded shape without facets. The cabochon style is quite old. It was the earliest style used to finish gems. The cabochons in these drawings are shown from the side. A cabochon could be a simple cabochon with a rounded top and a flat bottom, or it could be a double cabochon, which is rounded on both the top and the bottom. It was discovered early on that powders of harder material, such as diamonds, could be used to polish gemstones, and many ancient cultures used this method to finish gems. The cabochon cut was not a faceted cut. A facet, for those of you who don't know, is a flat surface cut into a gem. It's not clear when faceting of stones first developed. Stones were faceted as early as the 15th century in Europe, and they may have been faceted earlier than that in other cultures. Now we'll look at one of the earliest styles of faceted gems, the table cut. You can see a table-cut stone from the top and from the side in these drawings. An interesting thing to note is that early stones faceted in this way were probably not actually cut, but were polished to this shape, using powders of harder stones such as diamonds. It does look like it was cut, but this stone was polished to this shape. Some stones, including diamonds, occur naturally in 8-sided double pyramids. To create a table cut from an 8-sided double pyramid, it's necessary only to polish a flat surface on the top of one side of the naturally occurring 8-sided shapes. The next stage in the development of gem cutting is the rose cut. In a rose cut, the stone is actually cut rather than polished. This was one of the earliest methods of faceting the entire surface of a diamond or other gem. It's a very pretty cut, isn't it? As you can tell from its name, it's supposed to look like a rose in bloom. The rose cut involved cutting up to 32 triangular facets on the top of a diamond and a flat surface on the bottom. You can see a rose cut in the drawing from the top and from the bottom. Oh, excuse me, that's a top view and a side view. There's no bottom view of the rose cut. Now, you should note that this type of cut was beneficial because it maintained much of the original stone. However, it doesn't reflect light in a way that maximizes the stone's shine and brilliance. Because it doesn't reflect light as well as other cuts, the rose cut's no longer used much today. The last type of cut we'll look at is the brilliant cut. The brilliant cut came into use after the other styles. You can see a brilliant cut from the top, and from the side, and from the bottom. The brilliant cut's faceted on the sides and top, and also on the bottom. A stone with a brilliant cut in the correct proportion reflects the maximum amount of light out through the top of the stone, and creates a stone that, as its name indicates, shines the most brilliantly. This style of stone is used quite often today because it's so reflective. We've seen 4 different styles of gems today, in the order that they developed historically. 2 of them, the cabochon and the table cut, are polished rather than cut to create the style, while the other 2 are actually cut. Before next class, please look over the photos of gems at the end of the chapter and identify the style of each stone.
Number 6. How does the professor present the different styles of gems? Number 7. What are the characteristics of these gemstone cuts? Number 8. What does the professor say about faceting? Number 9. Which style of gem is no longer used much because it does not reflect light well? Number 10. What overall conclusion can be drawn from the lecture?